Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Let's dive into today's story. She painted his portrait without knowing his face. It all started on a chilly evening in a quiet corner of New York City, where Emma Brooks, a young artist with big dreams and little money, found herself facing a dilemma. She had spent the last few months trying to make ends meet, working long shifts at a local cafe and selling a few of her sketches to keep the lights on. But painting was her passion, her real dream. And this was her chance. It all began when Emma received an unexpected call. The voice on the other end was calm, but there was an edge to it, one that suggested money, big money. "I need you to paint my portrait," the man said. No questions asked, and no meeting in person. Just a portrait. A simple one. You'll be well compensated for your time. Emma was caught off guard, but the offer was too good to refuse. She was struggling to pay rent, let alone afford the supplies she needed for her art. After a few moments of hesitation, she agreed. The man gave her a brief description of himself: tall, with dark hair and a well-tailored suit, but nothing beyond that. She was intrigued but also slightly suspicious. Still, the promise of a big paycheck was enough to push aside any doubts. "I'll begin immediately," she said, trying to sound confident. The first few days of painting were strange. Emma worked alone in her small studio, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside her window. She only had the brief description to guide her. No reference photos. No clues about who he was, aside from the few words he'd spoken. She focused on the details: the sharp lines of his jaw, the way his collar looked from a distance, the faintest impression of his posture. Every stroke of her brush felt like a step closer to someone she had never met. But as she painted, something unexpected began to happen. She started to imagine him. His life, his world, the stories he had to tell. Every detail she added felt like a connection forming, even if it was one-sided. It was an odd feeling. How could someone she had never met leave such an impression on her? She laughed at herself sometimes, wondering if she was just projecting her hopes and dreams onto this faceless stranger. Then, one evening, as she was finishing up the final touches, the phone rang again. "I need to see the portrait," the man's voice said. "I'll be there tomorrow." Emma's heart raced. She wasn't sure what she had expected, but it wasn't this. The next day, as the clock ticked down to their meeting, she found herself nervous, the brushes trembling slightly in her hands. She had never expected to actually meet him, not like this. She tried to prepare herself for whatever was to come. Was he a businessman? A philanthropist? Why was he so intent on staying hidden from her? The doorbell rang, and her breath caught in her throat. When she opened the door, she was greeted by a tall, sharply dressed man, exactly as she had imagined, but it was more than that. His presence felt different. He had an air of command, of someone who owned not just the room, but the entire building. "Miss Brooks," he said with a slight nod, his deep voice surprisingly warm. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." And then, for the first time, she saw him, the man she had painted, standing right before her. He was more than what she had imagined, more than what she had projected. He wasn't just a businessman. He was Liam Parker, the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the world. The man she had painted without knowing his true identity. Emma froze for a moment. Her heart raced as she processed the shock of it. This was the man behind the voice, the mysterious client who had hired her to paint him. But why? Why had he kept his identity hidden? And what was it about this moment that felt so electric? She couldn't tell if she was more stunned by the fact that she had painted him so accurately, or by the reality of who he really was. He smiled faintly, noticing her wide eyes. "I suppose you weren't expecting someone like me." His words were light, but there was a hidden meaning behind them, something she couldn't quite place. She felt the tension in the room, the weight of her brushstrokes, the energy that had built up from the connection she'd felt with him through the painting. She was standing face-to-face with the man who had once seemed like a distant shadow on the canvas. And now, there was no going back. What she didn't know, though, was that this meeting wasn't just about the portrait. It was the beginning of something much bigger, something that would change both of their lives in ways they never expected. As Emma stood there, frozen in shock, staring at Liam Parker, the man she had just painted without knowing his true identity, the weight of the moment hit her. She had known him only through her art, the strokes of her brush capturing an image of a man she never thought would become real in her life. Now, here he was, standing before her, the man of the portrait, and the realization slowly crept in: he was not just any man. He was Liam Parker, the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech company. The same man who had hired her without revealing his identity, and now, the man she had been imagining all along. His deep, steady gaze met hers, and Emma's heart raced as her mind tried to process everything. "I didn't expect you to be this surprised," Liam said, breaking the silence that had hung between them. His voice was calm, almost too calm, considering the situation. He smiled faintly, but there was something unreadable in his eyes, a mixture of amusement and a touch of apprehension. Emma could hardly believe it. She had spent days painting his face, studying the way his features would look in the dim light of her studio, but never in a million years did she imagine the man she had brought to life on her canvas would be the famous, elusive billionaire that everyone in the city whispered about. And yet, there he was, in her small, cluttered studio, looking just as polished and powerful as she had imagined him. "You don't understand," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" Liam took a step closer, his expression softening. "I wanted to see if you could capture more than just my face," he replied, his tone almost apologetic. "I wanted to know if you could see the real me, beyond the suit and the name. It was important to me that you didn't know who I was when you painted me. I wanted to see if you would approach the painting with honesty, without any preconceptions." Emma felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had painted him without any knowledge of who he was, yet now that she saw him standing before her, the mystery felt unsettling. She had seen something in the portrait, a connection, a quiet understanding, but now it all felt tainted. How could she have been so blind to the reality of who he really was? The man she had imagined was not the man who stood before her. "I didn't ask for any of this," Emma said, her words coming out more sharply than she intended. "I didn't know who you were, Liam. How could you just—" She stopped herself, realizing she had started to lose control. He held up a hand, cutting her off gently. "I know it's a lot to process, Emma. I never intended to make you feel uncomfortable or used. I just wanted to experience something real for once, something untouched by the world that knows my name." Emma felt a flicker of sympathy. She could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of his words hanging in the air. And yet, something about him still felt distant, as if there was a barrier between them that couldn't easily be crossed. He was a man of power and wealth, surrounded by an aura of control and authority, but she couldn't shake the feeling that beneath it all, there was loneliness, a loneliness that mirrored her own. "I don't know what to say," Emma murmured, still trying to make sense of everything. "I mean, what now? Why are you here? What do you want from me?" Liam's gaze softened even further, and for a brief moment, Emma saw vulnerability in him. It was fleeting, but it was there. "I wanted to thank you for capturing me in a way no one else has," he said. "And I wanted to offer you something in return for the time and effort you've put into this painting. I'm sure you're struggling financially, and I want to help. I'm offering you a contract, something real. Not just a job, but a chance to work with me on a new project I'm starting. It's a chance to make a name for yourself, to create something that could change everything for you." Emma blinked, taken aback by his words. The offer was tempting, but it felt wrong. She had never been one to accept charity or handouts, even if they came wrapped in a shiny package. She had built her life, however small, on her own terms, and the idea of being handed something, especially from a man like Liam, felt off. "You're offering me a job?" she asked, trying to hide the skepticism in her voice. "What kind of project?" Liam smiled, but it wasn't a smile of amusement. It was a smile of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "I'll explain everything once you're ready," he said. "But I'm not just offering you a job, Emma. I'm offering you a chance to make a real impact. You've got talent, and I want to help you show the world who you are. You deserve more than what you've been settling for." Emma hesitated. The idea of working with someone like Liam, someone with the resources to change her future, was overwhelming. But there was something else she couldn't ignore: the way his words felt genuine, even if they came from someone who seemed so far removed from her world. She had never imagined herself working for a billionaire, yet here she was, staring at the offer that could change everything. But what did he really want from her? Was this just another business deal for him? Or was there something more beneath the surface? As the silence stretched between them, Emma realized she was standing at a crossroads, one where every decision could either propel her forward or force her back into the life she had always known. And in that moment, she had no idea which way she would choose. As Emma stood in the silence of her small studio, the weight of Liam's offer hung in the air like a thick fog. Her mind raced, trying to process everything he had just said. A job? A chance to make a name for herself? She had always dreamed of something bigger, but this was not what she had imagined. She had built her life on independence, on her art, and now she was being asked to step into a world she knew nothing about. A world of power, money, and high expectations. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself to take this leap? She looked at Liam, standing there, waiting for a response. His expression was calm, almost too calm, as if he knew exactly how she would react. "Take your time," he said gently. "I understand this is a lot to take in. But know this opportunity is real. And it could change everything for you." Emma's fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the paintbrush on the nearby table, absent-mindedly running it between her fingers. The portrait of Liam still sat on the easel, unfinished, as if it were a symbol of her confusion, her struggle to understand this man and what he wanted from her. She had painted him, imagined him, but now that he was real, standing before her, everything felt different. He wasn't just a client. He was Liam Parker, a man whose world she could never truly understand. "I don't know what to say," Emma finally muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've never been in a position like this before." Liam nodded, his gaze never leaving her. "I can imagine it's overwhelming," he said softly. "But Emma, I'm not asking for your trust right away. I'm not asking you to make a decision now. Just think about it. Think about what you want, what you deserve. You've spent so much of your life doing what you can to survive, to make a living. But you have the talent to do so much more. I want to help you realize that. No strings attached, no hidden motives." She met his gaze, the sincerity in his eyes making her heart flutter despite herself. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that someone like him, someone with everything at his fingertips, could care about her art, about what she wanted to do with her life. But the walls she had built around herself over the years were not so easily torn down. Could she really trust a man like him? Could she let herself be vulnerable enough to accept his help? "I'll need time," she said quietly, her voice steady but unsure. "This is a big decision. It's not just about the money or the job. It's about who I am, what I want from life. I can't just accept this offer without thinking it through." Liam's expression softened, and for the first time, Emma saw a glimpse of the man beyond the CEO, the billionaire who seemed so distant. "Take all the time you need," he said. "But know that I'm here, and I believe in what you can do. I've seen your work, Emma. You have the talent, the heart. This is your chance to take it to the next level. You don't have to do this alone." Emma felt a surge of emotion rise within her, a mix of gratitude, fear, and confusion. She had never been one to rely on others, to trust easily. She had always been self-sufficient, determined to make it on her own. But Liam's words, his presence, were slowly breaking down the walls she had built around her art. She couldn't deny that part of her wanted this, wanted the opportunity to finally make her mark, to be seen, to be valued. But was it worth the risk? Was it worth stepping into a world she knew so little about? She looked at Liam, her gaze steady now, her resolve starting to form. "I'll think about it," she said, the words coming more confidently now. "I'll let you know." Liam smiled, the faintest hint of relief in his eyes. "I'll be waiting," he said simply. "But take your time. I'm not going anywhere." With that, he turned and walked toward the door, leaving Emma standing in the middle of the room, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on her shoulders. She watched him leave, the door closing softly behind him, and for a moment, she stood still, letting the silence fill the space around her. her gaze fell on the portrait again. The man in the painting seemed different now, as if the brushstrokes held a deeper meaning than she had realized. It was more than just a likeness. It was a reflection of something she couldn't yet put into words, a connection that had begun with the strokes of her brush and had now become something far more complicated. She took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. This was it. The moment that could change everything. The chance to finally step into the life she had always dreamed of, or to stay where she was, trapped in the safety of her own fears. She didn't know what the right choice was, but for the first time in a long time, she knew that whatever happened next, it would be her decision. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Days passed, and Emma's mind kept returning to Liam's offer. She had spent sleepless nights turning it over in her mind, questioning whether she was ready for such a big change. Her life, though simple, had always been her own, and the idea of stepping into a world of wealth, power, and expectations felt overwhelming. Still, the idea of working with someone like Liam, someone who could give her the chance she had always dreamed of, kept gnawing at her. She wanted to make her mark in the art world, but was she willing to pay the price for it? One afternoon, while she was working on a new piece, the phone rang again. It was Liam. His voice, calm and steady as always, came through the line. "Emma, I just wanted to check in. Have you had any more thoughts about my offer? I don't want to pressure you, but I believe in what you can do." His words were kind, yet there was an urgency behind them, a feeling that he genuinely wanted her to succeed. Emma paused for a moment, her heart racing. She had promised herself she would think about it, but the decision seemed to be getting harder, not easier. "I've been thinking a lot," she said slowly, her voice soft. "And I'm not sure. I want to take the opportunity, but I'm scared. I've always done things on my own, and this feels like stepping into something I'm not sure I can handle." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Liam's voice softened. "I understand," he said. "But sometimes, stepping into the unknown is the only way to grow. I won't force you, Emma, but I'm here to help. I'm offering you a chance to be a part of something bigger, to show the world your talent. It's not just about the money or the connections, it's about your future, your legacy as an artist." Emma took a deep breath. Liam's words struck something deep inside her. The fear that had held her back for so long, fear of failure, fear of being lost in a world she didn't understand, began to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of determination. Maybe this was the opportunity she had been waiting for her entire life. She had spent so long doubting herself, playing it safe, but what if this was the moment that could change everything? What if she was ready to step into her true potential? "Okay," she said, her voice steadier now. "I'm in. I want to take the chance. I want to see where this could lead." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, and then Liam's voice returned, this time warmer, filled with relief. "You won't regret it, Emma. I promise." The next few days were a whirlwind. Emma's life, once filled with the calm routine of her small studio and cafe shifts, suddenly became busy with meetings and preparations. Liam had arranged everything, helping her find a new studio space, introducing her to his team, and guiding her through the early stages of the project. The world of high-end art galleries, corporate sponsors, and press events was also new to her, yet Liam was there, making sure she didn't feel lost. He was patient with her, never pushing too hard, but always encouraging her to push further, to aim higher. One day, after a particularly intense meeting where they discussed her upcoming exhibition, Liam invited her to dinner. "I think you've earned a break," he said with a smile. "Let's go somewhere quiet. No business talk, just a meal and a chance to unwind." Emma agreed, though she couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to spend time with Liam outside of work, without the pressure of business hanging over them. They chose a small, cozy restaurant tucked away in a quiet part of the city. The atmosphere was warm, with soft lighting and the smell of fresh herbs in the air. It felt like a world away from the corporate offices and busy galleries. As they sat down, Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't thinking about contracts or exhibitions or deadlines. She was simply enjoying the moment, enjoying the company of someone who had, in such a short time, become an important part of her life. Throughout dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Liam shared stories about his childhood, about the challenges of running a massive company at such a young age, and Emma found herself laughing more than she had in ages. There was something disarming about him despite his wealth and success. He was kind, humble even, in a way that surprised her. As the evening wore on, Emma found herself relaxing completely. Maybe this was what she had needed all along, a break from the pressures, a chance to just be herself. And as they finished their meal, Liam looked at her, his expression serious yet gentle. "I'm glad you're here, Emma," he said, his voice quieter now, almost like he was revealing a secret. "You've got something special. I can't wait to see where you go from here. But remember, you're not doing this alone. I'm here, every step of the way." Emma met his gaze, her heart swelling with gratitude. This was more than just a business relationship. It was more than an opportunity. It was the beginning of something new, something real. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to embrace it. As the weeks went by, Emma settled into her new routine. The pace of her life had changed drastically. She was no longer struggling to make ends meet, but instead, she was stepping into a world that felt both exhilarating and intimidating. Liam had kept his promise. He helped her navigate the art world, introducing her to key players, arranging meetings with gallery owners, and giving her the confidence to speak up for her art. She had her own studio now, a beautiful space filled with natural light and inspiration, a far cry from the cramped room where she had once worked. But with all the excitement came pressure. Every day brought new challenges, decisions about which pieces to showcase, how to present herself to the public, and what kind of artist she wanted to be. The fear of failing in this new world, the fear of not living up to the expectations that came with this opportunity, was always at the back of her mind. But Liam was there, guiding her every step of the way, offering advice, encouragement, and, most importantly, belief in her talent. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Emma sat in her studio, staring at her latest painting. The piece was coming together, but something didn't feel right. She could feel the frustration rising within her. She had worked on it for hours, but it still didn't capture the essence of what she wanted to say. It wasn't good enough. Her hand gripped the paintbrush tightly as she began to add strokes with more force, trying to force the painting to become what she envisioned. Just as she was about to step back in frustration, she heard a knock on the door. It was Liam. She hadn't expected him to come by that evening, but there he was, standing in the doorway with a small smile on his face. "I thought you might be here," he said, his voice warm and calm. "You've been working nonstop lately. How's it going?" Emma put down her paintbrush and sighed. "It's not going well," she admitted. "I just can't seem to get it right. Every stroke I make feels wrong. I thought this would be easier, but I don't know if I can do this. What if I'm not cut out for this kind of art? What if I can't live up to the expectations?" Liam stepped into the room, walking toward her and stopping in front of the canvas. He steadied the painting quietly for a moment before turning to her. "Emma," he said softly, "do you know why I hired you in the first place?" She looked at him, confused. "Why?" "Because you have something real. Something people can feel. You've captured that essence in every piece you've made. This painting isn't about perfection. It's about emotion, about telling a story, about connecting with people. Don't worry about what others expect from you. Worry about what you want to express. Art isn't about fitting into someone else's mold. It's about finding your own voice." Emma listened, feeling the weight of his words sink in. He was right, of course. She had been so focused on the outcome, so obsessed with the idea of meeting others' expectations, that she had lost sight of why she started painting in the first place. It wasn't about accolades or fame. It was about the joy she felt when she brought a vision to life on the canvas. It was about connecting with people through her art. She took a deep breath and looked at the painting again, this time with a new perspective. The strokes seemed less forced now, more natural. She began to add delicate touches, letting the brush flow freely. For the first time in a while, she wasn't thinking about what others would think. She was just painting for herself. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "I needed to hear that." Liam smiled, his eyes warm. "I'm always here for you, Emma. You're not alone in this." For a moment, there was a quiet understanding between them, a bond that went beyond business, beyond the art. Emma realized that, despite the wealth and success Liam had, he too was searching for something real. He wasn't just offering her a chance to succeed, was offering her a chance to find her own truth, to live authentically. As Liam turned to leave, he paused at the door and looked back at her. "You're doing great," he said with a reassuring nod. "Just keep going. And remember, I'm always here if you need anything." Emma watched him leave, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she knew she wasn't alone. She had her art, her dreams, and, now, a mentor who believed in her. And that was more than she could have ever hoped for. As she turned back to her painting, the colors on the canvas seemed to dance with new life. The vision that had once seemed so distant was finally coming into focus. Emma smiled to herself, a quiet sense of peace settling over her. She wasn't just painting a picture. She was painting her future. As the days passed, Emma's confidence grew, slowly but surely. The painting that had once seemed like an insurmountable challenge was now beginning to take shape, and with each stroke, she felt more connected to her art and to herself. She had taken Liam's advice to heart. She wasn't painting for anyone else's approval, she was painting for herself. It was liberating in a way she hadn't expected. She no longer worried about being perfect. She just created. Her new studio became a sanctuary of sorts, a space where she could lose herself in her work without distraction. Every day, she spent hours working on her pieces, pushing the boundaries of her own creativity. And yet, despite her growing success and the recognition she was beginning to receive from the art community, there were still moments of doubt. Was she really cut out for this world? Would she ever be able to truly belong, or was she just a visitor in a world so different from her own? One afternoon, as she was finishing a new piece, there was a knock on the door. Emma wiped her hands on a rag and went to answer it, wondering who it could be. She opened the door, and there stood Liam, holding a bouquet of flowers. His smile was warm, his eyes full of something more than just business. "I thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "And I brought these for you. I know you've been working non-stop, and I wanted to remind you that you're doing great." Emma felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, but she tried to hide it with a small, nervous laugh. "You didn't have to do that," she said, taking the flowers from him and setting them down on the counter. "But thank you. I really appreciate it." "Of course," Liam said, his voice softening as he looked around her studio. "You've come a long way, Emma. When I first met you, I saw potential, but now I see an artist who is finding her voice. It's been incredible to watch you grow." Emma's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had always been self-critical, always thinking she wasn't good enough. But Liam saw something in her that she hadn't seen in herself. He had given her the opportunity, but more than that, he had believed in her, even when she hadn't been sure herself. "I'm just doing what I love," Emma replied, trying to downplay the praise, though she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his words. "It's still a bit overwhelming, but I think I'm starting to get the hang of it." Liam smiled, taking a step closer. "I'm glad to hear that. But you've got more than just talent, Emma. You've got something that can change the world. You just need to keep pushing, keep believing in yourself." The air between them seemed to shift, and Emma felt a flutter in her chest. She wasn't sure when it had happened, but somewhere along the way, her feelings for Liam had grown. He wasn't just her mentor anymore, he had become something more. She couldn't deny it, even if she tried. The way he cared about her, the way he supported her without question, had made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt before. "I'll keep trying," she said softly, looking up at him. "But it's hard sometimes. I'm not used to taking risks, and everything feels so new. I don't want to mess it all up." Liam's eyes softened, and for a moment, he was silent, as if weighing his words carefully. "Taking risks is part of the journey. And you're not alone in this, Emma. I'm right here with you, every step of the way." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. And in that moment, Emma realized something important, something she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge before. She didn't just trust Liam as a mentor. She trusted him as a person, someone who had become an integral part of her life. And more than that, she cared for him in a way that went beyond admiration. The realization hit her like a wave, and her heart raced in her chest. She wasn't sure what this meant, or what would happen next, but she couldn't ignore the connection between them. It was undeniable, even if she wasn't ready to face it fully. As Liam stood there, watching her, Emma felt a mixture of emotions swirling within her: fear, excitement, uncertainty. But above all, she felt a sense of hope. For the first time in her life, she was living in the moment, embracing the possibilities in front of her without letting the fear of the unknown hold her back. And that was enough. Liam broke the silence with a small, reassuring smile. "I know you're scared, Emma. But that's the beauty of it. Fear means you're stepping into something new, something that could change everything for the better." Emma nodded, her eyes meeting his, and for a brief moment, it felt as though time stood still. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: whatever happened next, she was ready to face it head-on, with Liam by her side. Weeks passed, and as Emma's confidence continued to grow, so did her connection with Liam. They spent more time together, not just in the studio or at meetings, but in moments of quiet conversation, where they shared stories, dreams, and fears. With each passing day, Emma felt herself drawn to him more and more. But she couldn't ignore the tension that had started to build between them. It was more than just professional admiration. There was something deeper, something that neither of them had dared to address. One afternoon, after a particularly successful gallery opening, Emma found herself standing on the balcony of the new studio, the cool breeze brushing against her face as she looked out at the city below. The opening had been a triumph. Her work was being recognized, her name was beginning to circulate in the art world, and Liam's support had been unwavering. Yet, as she stood there, a sense of unease gnawed at her. She had been so focused on her career and the opportunities ahead that she hadn't given herself a chance to process her emotions about Liam. As if on cue, Liam stepped out onto the balcony, his presence always commanding, yet gentle in a way that made Emma's heart race. He leaned against the railing beside her, their shoulders brushing ever so slightly, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was comfortable, but it was also filled with unspoken words. "You did it," Liam said quietly, his voice low with pride. "Tonight was incredible. I'm proud of you." Emma smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "It feels surreal," she admitted, her gaze still fixed on the city lights below. "I never imagined I'd get this far, and now, I don't know what's next." Liam's expression softened, and he turned to face her fully. "You've already come so far," he said, his voice steady. "And you'll keep going. You're not done yet, Emma. There's so much more for you to achieve." Emma took a deep breath, her mind racing. She wanted to believe him, wanted to embrace the future he saw for her. But in the back of her mind, a question lingered. "But what about us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where does this whatever this is fit in?" The question hung in the air, and for the first time, Liam seemed taken aback. He didn't immediately respond, his gaze shifting as he considered her words. Emma felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Had she gone too far? Was she pushing too hard? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Liam spoke, his voice softer than before. "Emma, you know how much I care about you," he said, his words slow, deliberate. "But there's a lot to figure out. There are things about me, about this world, that you don't know yet. And I'm not sure if I can give you everything you deserve." Emma's heart sank, the weight of his words hitting her like a wave. She had known, deep down, that this moment would come. She had been so focused on her career, on her growth as an artist, that she hadn't allowed herself to truly think about what Liam meant to her or what it could mean for them. She turned to him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of what he truly felt. "You've always been there for me," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "And I don't know where I'd be without you. But I need to know, are you saying you don't want this? That you don't want us?" Liam looked at her, his gaze intense. "I want you, Emma," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "But there are things I need to work through. Things I'm not sure how to navigate. This world I live in, it's complicated. It's not as simple as it seems." Emma swallowed, the reality of the situation sinking in. She had always known that Liam's life was far more complicated than hers, but hearing him admit it so openly made her heart ache. She had come so far, and yet, standing on this balcony with him, she realized how far they still had to go. The silence stretched between them again, and this time, it was Emma who spoke first. "I can't wait for you to figure it out, Liam. I can't keep putting my life on hold, waiting for you to make up your mind." The words felt heavy as they left her mouth, and she immediately regretted them. But it was the truth. She had spent too long waiting for something that wasn't clear, not knowing where she stood in Liam's life. She had to make her own choices, her own future. Liam's face softened, and he reached out, gently touching her arm. "I understand, Emma. I really do," he said, his voice sincere. "I don't want to hold you back. But I hope you know that I'm here. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'll be here." Emma nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She knew he was right. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about her, her future, and what she wanted out of life. She had come so far, and now, it was time to decide what she really wanted, not just in her art, but in her heart. The days following their conversation on the balcony were filled with a quiet tension. Emma spent more time in her studio, pouring herself into her work, trying to focus on what she could control. But her thoughts kept drifting back to Liam. She knew he was still dealing with his own struggles, but she couldn't help but feel the distance growing between them. She had always been independent, but now, more than ever, she felt the weight of the uncertainty between them. Every day, she felt herself asking the same question: what was she waiting for? Then, one evening, just as Emma was finishing a new piece, the doorbell rang. She was caught off guard. She hadn't expected anyone. When she opened the door, she found Liam standing there, looking more serious than she had ever seen him. His usual confidence seemed subdued, and for the first time, there was a trace of vulnerability in his expression. "Can we talk?" he asked softly, his voice low, almost hesitant. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She nodded, stepping aside to let him in. "Of course," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They sat down in her studio, the silence between them more pronounced than ever. Emma looked at him, waiting for him to speak, to say something that would break the tension. But Liam remained quiet for a moment, his hands clasped together as if trying to find the right words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Emma," he began, his gaze meeting hers. "About everything about us, about the future. And I realized something important. I've been holding back. I've been afraid of letting you in, afraid of what it would mean to truly be vulnerable with you." Emma's heart ached at his words. She could feel the sincerity in them, the weight of his admission. It wasn't easy for him to open up, but here he was, laying it all on the line. She reached out, placing a hand gently on his, offering her support without saying a word. Liam took a deep breath before continuing. "I care about you, Emma. More than I've ever cared about anyone. And I've been afraid that if I let myself fully commit to this, to us, it would change everything. But the truth is, it already has. You've changed me. And I can't keep pretending that I don't want this. I want you in my life. I want to be with you." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had always known that there was something deeper between them, but hearing him say it aloud, hearing him admit that he wanted more, felt like a dream she hadn't dared to hope for. She wanted to believe him, to trust that he was ready to take the next step. But a part of her still felt uncertain. Was this truly what she wanted, too? She looked at him, her heart racing, and for the first time, she allowed herself to be completely honest. "I want this too, Liam," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "But I need to know that this isn't just about what you want. It's about what we both want. I can't keep waiting for something that's not real. I need to know that we're in this together, that we're both willing to fight for it." Liam's eyes softened, and for a moment, there was a quiet understanding between them. He reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands, his touch warm and reassuring. "We are in this together," he said, his voice firm with conviction. "I'm not asking you to wait anymore, Emma. I'm not asking you to hold back. I'm ready. I want to build something real with you. I'm not going anywhere." The words hung in the air, and Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. It was the answer she had been waiting for. The uncertainty that had clouded her mind for so long began to fade, replaced by a feeling of clarity and hope. She smiled, the weight of the past few weeks lifting from her shoulders. Then let's do it, she said, her voice full of determination. Let's build something real. And in that moment, Emma knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. It wasn't going to be easy, and there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to take the leap, to trust in herself, and in Liam. Together, they could create something that was more than just a business arrangement, more than just an opportunity. It could be the beginning of a life they both had always dreamed of. As Emma and Liam stood together, the weight of the past few weeks seemed to lift, leaving only a sense of possibility in its place. The uncertainty that had once clouded their connection was gone, replaced by a mutual understanding. They had both taken a leap of faith, trusting each other and their own desires. The future, while still unknown, suddenly felt like something they could face together, side by side. The weeks that followed were filled with the kind of growth Emma had always dreamed of. Her art, once a solitary passion, began to reach new heights. Her exhibitions gained attention, and her name started to circulate in the art world in a way she had never imagined. With Liam's support, not only in her career but also in her personal life, she felt unstoppable. It wasn't just about the work anymore, it was about the partnership they had built, one based on trust, vulnerability, and a shared vision. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. As Emma's success grew, so did the pressure. There were moments when the weight of everything, her art, her relationship with Liam, the expectations from the art community, felt overwhelming. There were times when she wondered if she could keep up, if she could balance it all. But through it all, Liam was there, offering his steady presence, reminding her of who she was, and why she had started this journey in the first place. One evening, after an exhausting day filled with meetings and planning for her next exhibition, Emma found herself alone in the studio once again, staring at her latest piece. She had been working tirelessly for days, pushing herself to the limit. Her eyes were tired, but there was a sense of accomplishment in the way she looked at her work. She had created something beautiful, something that felt true to who she was as an artist. As she took a step back to admire her work, the door to the studio opened, and Liam stepped in, his presence as comforting as ever. He walked toward her with a smile, but there was something different in his eyes, something more than just admiration. "It's amazing, Emma," he said softly, his gaze focused on the painting. "You've come so far. This piece is everything you've worked for. It's beautiful." Emma smiled, but there was a lingering doubt in her voice. "I'm not sure it's enough," she admitted. "There's always more to be done, more to improve. Sometimes, it feels like no matter how hard I try, I can never reach the level I want." Liam moved closer, standing beside her. He placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "You've already reached the level you wanted," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "It's not about perfection, Emma. It's about the journey. The fact that you're here, creating, sharing your work with the world, that's what matters." Emma turned to face him, her heart swelling with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You've helped me find my way." Liam smiled, his expression softening. "You found your way, Emma. I just helped you see it. And I'll always be here, cheering you on." In that moment, Emma realized that she had come full circle. The journey that had begun with uncertainty and fear had led her to this place, to a life where her dreams were becoming a reality. But more than that, she had found someone who believed in her not just as an artist, but as a person. And in turn, she had learned to believe in herself. As they stood together in the quiet of the studio, Emma knew that this was only the beginning. The future was still uncertain, but with Liam by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. And as she looked at the painting in front of her, she understood that this wasn't just about art. It was about life, about love, and about taking the risks that made it all worth it. "We've got this," Liam said, his hand still resting on her shoulder. "Together." Emma smiled, the weight of the world feeling a little lighter now. She knew that, no matter what challenges they faced in the future, they would face them together, side by side. And that was enough to make her believe that anything was possible.